My name is Grace, and today I'm going to go into chapter 5 of Who Was Pablo Picasso? Chapter 5 Something New. By 1909, Pablo was becoming well known. His paintings were different, but people were buying them. He and Ferrande moved to a fancier house. They hired a maid. They spent the summer with Baque in an old villa in the mountains. Then he and Ferrand broke up. Pablo said, "Her beauty helped me, but I could not stand of her little ways, any of her little ways." Soon, Pablo had a new girlfriend, Eva Gorel. Pablo painted a picture of Eva called Majoli. It means my pretty girl. Pablo was in love again. He fell in love many times in his long life. Once again, Pablo and Brockway were on to something new. They were started using stencils and printed words in their paintings. They also began passing things onto their pictures. If they wanted a newspaper to be shown, instead of painting it, they stuck a real piece of newspaper. That was how collage began. Collage means to stick. One of Pablo's first collages was called Still Life with Chair Candy. Baque and Picasso went on, in their playful way, sticking other things onto their paintings. Pieces of cloth, sandpaper, wallpaper, even trash. But the experiments with art were interrupted by world events. In 1914, a local war between Austria and Hungary and Serbia grew into what became known as the Great War, World War I. The Archduke of Austria was killed by a Serb. Germany backed Austria-Hungary, and Russia backed Serbia. Germany declared war on Russia, then on France. Soon, the countries all over the world were involved, including the United States. In 1914, Bocquet was drafted into the French army. Pablo wasn't a French citizen. He didn't have to join the army. He stayed in Paris while many of his friends went off to fight. Pablo missed them. France was fighting against Germany. Because Pablo's friends, the gallery owner Count Wheeler, was German. He was forced to leave France. The French thought anybody German was an enemy. The gallery was closed by the French authorities. All Pablo's works were sophisticated. In 1950, Pablo's dear Eva died of tuberculosis. Pablo was broken-hearted. Again, his sadness showed in his painting. He had worked on one painting while Eva was sick, Harley Quinn, and finished it after she died. It shows a calm-like artist in front of an easel holding an unfinished painting. The background is black. It was a bleak time in Europe, in Pablo's personal life as well. Chapter 6 Falling in Love Again and Again. During World War I, Pablo found some new friends in Paris. Some of them were a poet and playwright named Jean Cocteau. He introduced Pablo to a music composer. The two of them convinced Pablo to design a set and costumes for a ballet to be performed in Rome. It was about a circus and was called Parade. Pablo had never seen a ballet before. He traveled to Rome to work on it, and when it was finally performed, Parade bombed. It was too different for most people. The costumes were wild. So were the sets, and the music, and the dancing. While in Rome, Pablo was fascinated with ancient Greek and Roman art. He also became fascinated with beautiful Olga Kolova, one of the dancers in the ballet. He married her a year later. Back in Paris, Olga introduced Pablo to high society. They went to formal balls and to fancy resorts. For someone like Pablo who always cared so much about the poor, this was quite a switch. Olga was a snob. He kept Picasso away from old friends, and Picasso went along with it. He didn't have to work anymore. He was already rich. Yet that didn't mean he stopped working. Once again, he just changed direction. After the war, Pablo did far less with cubism and collage, and he went to painting in more traditional ways. After all his experimenting, Pablo found another way to surprise people. By not being the Picasso they expected. In 1921, Pablo and Olga had a son, Paulo. Pablo adored his new baby. He loved being a father, but it was a change for him. Over and over, he painted mother and son in a new style. The forms were solid looking, not jagged and broken as in his Cupids painting. His painting, Dream Woman at the Spring, shows three figures in classical Greek-style clothing. They have rounded forms and thick legs. Picasso said paintings the legs brought back childhood memories of crawling under the dinner table and seeing his aunt's ankles. At the same time, he also painted three musicians in a simplified Cubist style, but now the shapes and colors were brighter. The figures looked like pieces in a jigsaw puzzle. Why would Picasso change suddenly from one style to another? He said he was simply using a style that best suited the subject. Then Picasso started painting things like centaurs and fawns. He admired them in the ancient statues and art that he had seen in Italy. The Cubists thought Picasso was selling out. Picasso didn't care what other artists thought. He didn't want to be labeled. He was Picasso. By 1925, Picasso became interested in Surrealist movement in art and literature. Surrealist painting was a way of expressing the unconscious mind. Picasso painted a world of dreams and nightmares. He took part of it in a show of Surrealist art. On the side, Picasso was writing poetry and doing book illustrations and etchings. He had enough energy for 10 people. Many of Picasso's surreal paintings and drawings and etchings were about bullfighting. He also made many images about Minotaur, an imaginary creature that was half man and half bull. Some art critics think that Picasso liked to think of himself as a Minotaur. Picasso also became interested in making sculptures. He had done some collage paintings of a guitar that used many 3D objects, like nails, string, and a cloth. It was after paintings like this were becoming sculptures. One day, Picasso met a metalworker and sculptor in Paris. His name was Julio González. He was Spanish too. Julio and Pablo became friends. They worked on abstract sculptures using welded metal rods and wire. It was something completely new. Unfortunately, Pablo's marriage to Olga was falling apart. They were living on separate floors of their house. She hated his messy studio, and it was messy. Pablo said the mess inspired him. Olaga was the problem. She asked too much of me, he said. So he bought a grand house north of Paris to escape her. Picasso said his last month with Olaga was a nightmare. At his new place, Picasso set up a sculpture studio in his stables. He made a big plaster head and started doing sculpture with odd materials. One sculpture had a woman he made using colanders. Picasso met a young girl as she was just coming out the subway in Paris. Her name was Mary Sears Walter. It was love at first sight. Immediately, Picasso began painting her. Years later, he and Mary Sears had a child together, a girl named Maya. Did they live happily ever after? No. Picasso met a photographer named Dora Maar. He fell in love with her just a year after his daughter was born. Pablo seemed to enjoy having a complicated love life. He was still seeing Mary Sears and still doing with Olaga, and now there was Dora. And so that's all of chapter 5 and 6. And maybe I will see you in the last 3 chapters. So that's all for today, and I will see you again. Bye!